Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to this online series. We're doing Chapter 2 or Series 2, Analyzing the External Environment of a Firm. And this is part of a strategic management course you're taking me with either a face-to-face class or on an online class or a, a hybrid or a adult fast track. So I'm just going to be utilizing the concept maps, and you already have the material presented to you. You have my concept maps, you have the reading materials, so let's go right into how do I analyze the external environment. When I look at strategic management as a whole, I'm looking at how do I change the whole organization. Do I need to change the whole organization? How should I be prepared for a new organization because of environmental factors that we're going to be discussing? So what am I doing? I'm looking and making sure that the organization is environmentally aware of what's going on. I do environmental scanning. I'm going out there and we're going to go into detail. I do environmental monitoring. Now I scan something. I'm keeping a pulse. Is it changing? Should I be? I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive from a strategic managerial position. Then I looked at environmental forecasting. Okay, so what do I do to project a change to make sure that the organization is in the right position, has all its cards, has all the resources needed for when the change actually takes hold, it'll be effective. One way of doing that is through a SWOT agreement, a SWOT analysis, and that's basically strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We're going to talk about the benefits of this. We're going to give an example, Southwest Airlines. We're going to talk about the general environment as a whole. We're going to talk about the competitive environment, how I should look, and then basically the whole course or everything else you're looking at is looking at Potter's five forces, and these forces I have to be aware of, because now when we go into it, is these forces that's going to help me strategically develop a strategic long-term, short-term, with objectives and goals to accomplish, to make sure that the organization is ready when the time comes to be sustainable and still maintain or increase its profit margin, depending if there was an opportunity or even something that we've changed and it was a weakness for us and now we turned it into an opportunity and increased our profitability. Okay, and then strategic group. So let's go about creating an an environmentally aware organization. Remember, you could always turn me off. When I say turn me off, it's the volume. Some people just like to look at the pictures or more of a visual and auditory, but if you look at the visuals, you look at the auditory, you have a higher probability of retaining the knowledge going forward. So importance of external competitive intelligence, creating competitive advantages. That's all basically environmentally aware organization are. They have to know what's going out there in the environment because it's going to affect us. Okay, now environmental scanning. Surveillance, let me just move this over here. Surveillance of firms' external environment. I'm scanning the environment. I have individuals do it. I'm reading the paper. I'm looking at Facebook. I'm looking at YouTube. I'm having public relations, seeing where my name is being mentioned. I Google that, put the company's name, and see what kind of activity is going. And now it predicts environmental changes. It tells me here's where the course is going. Here's what's changing. Detects changes already on the way, so that means I could either help incorporate those changes, help the changes come faster, or try to deflect the changes to some rules or regulations or something else. Remember, they haven't come in there. I just see here's the momentum going. Somebody wants to change it, somebody wants to slow down. Allows the firm to be proactive. The next thing you're going to do is environmental monitoring. Now I know that there's some change going out there. Come on, we know someone's watching me, for lack of better words, or I know something's going out there could affect my organization. If I know there's going to be a zoning change, if I look at it from my personal thing, so I'm very attentive. I already saw zoning change, what's going to affect. My taxes are going to go up, my road's going to be closed, my neighbor's going to change. So I'm very attentive. I'm monitoring it. Hard, measurable facts and events, and soft, estimated probable events. So I'm kind of assume what's the worst case scenario if this comes true, what's the best case scenario. Okay, so I have that. Now, competitive intelligence is basically organizations same thing like individuals, small or large, have to be able to understand their industry as a whole. The industry as a whole is going through changes. If I look at the textbook industry, it's going through changes to more software, to more e-books. Like it or not, people don't want to pay the money for that. They've got the smartphones, they've got the smart tablets, they've got the technology. So why do I have to carry this big book? I could have this one device. Remember, it's changing, and now I can do it. So now everything's changing. They have the Connect. Parson has Centridge. What do you call it? Platform, or Learn. McGraw-Hill has Connect. McGraw-Hill, whatever they are. You know what I mean? But they're adjusting to this. Okay, so I collect the data on what my competitor's doing. Because remember, customers. If my competitor's offering something, I can't offer it. They're going to switch. Right? Interpret intelligence to the data. I just got data. What does this mean? Anticipate my competitor's move. I can see him or her going, so I'm right behind. Some companies are followers. Let the competitor go in there, do all the advertising, do all awareness, and if customers take, a lot of people watch what Apple does with the smartwatches or smartwear. If it takes on, then all of a sudden competition comes in. They already took the risk. People accepted it. They did all that. Now I'm just coming in my product, and I'm just selling my product against somebody else. Decrease response times. Be aware of potential for unethical behavior while gathering intelligence. Make sure you get the intelligence legally. If it's on a website or anything else, there's a lot of data mining companies. They get it legal. They post something, somebody says something, and they just collect the data and put it in. Okay. That's what the government wants to do. See, if the government has all the source of everything I do, they could be powerful. A lot of businesses, you pay for that service, and they kind of find the data through different emails, they know who's associated with the company, and they try to get a general idea. Okay, so now I got environmental forecasting. I have to forecast. Now I know I'm monitoring this. What kind of change is going to happen? I'm taking my best guess. Sometimes I may be coming in, I'm going to bring a new process, but I'm waiting for the environment acceptance, for the public acceptance first before I initiate it. So direction and environmental changes, possible projections, scope of environmental changes. How quickly does the environment change? If you're in the industry, computer industry, or app industry, man, just constantly changes. Smartphones, I have a smartphone 2 years. Hey, 2 years, it's already outdated in 6 months, okay? Intensity and environmental change. Now, the scenario analysis, detailed assessments, just software that I can plug in and gives me a probability. When you're in business and statistics at this level, you're very heavy into probability and statistical analysis that gives me a database from a baseline. It helps me see with numbers the probability. If I go to a doctor and he says you got a probability of 10%, you're not going to make the operation, 90%, you will, I'll take it. But if he turns the numbers around, you got a 10% of surviving the operation, 90% of not surviving, I may not decide, do I want to pay for the 10%? Some do, some don't. It depends where you're at, how you're looking at the numbers, okay? And based on these assessments. Okay, now, SWOT in general, strength, weakness, and opportunity. It analyzes the firm's industry's condition. It has two aspects you got to remember. One is the firm's internal conditions, its strengths and weakness. And strengths and weakness are always internal, whether it's the organization or myself, where the firm excels and where it may be lacking. I have to know that. Then the environmental conditions or external conditions, basically it's looking at opportunities and threats. Developments that exist, I can't control them, exist in the general environment. I got to either minimize it, that's what we call risk management, or activities among other firms that's going to happen. They're having an alliance. Should I align myself with another organization, or should I go with myself? And competing, remember, you're competing for the same customer base. Customers are being bombarded with different information. How do I stick out? And it's usually customers looking at my strengths and at my weaknesses, so I try to minimize those. Okay, now benefits. Forces managers to consider both internal and external factors simultaneously. Makes the firm act proactively. Awareness, rolling in the strategy, right? Tells me no, firm strategy must be built on the strengths, remedy the weaknesses or work around them, and protect the firm from the threats. That's basically what the SWOT analysis does. It's just a way of doing it. And here's just an example of what Southwest Airlines. Their strength is strong culture, employee relationship. Their weakness is lack of cultural fit with the new Trans Air, and I'll just add that into the dictionary. Remember, they merged because they wanted to expand, but now that other culture is not the same like Southwest Airlines. So this is where if you would take me for organizational emotional behavior, and cultural change. It tells you how you change the culture. From a strategic perspective, I'm looking at, we have these two cultures. How do we get them together? They're not gonna, it's like two marriages. Somebody's got to work this out. Sometimes they work out together, but from a company's perspective, I will have a consultant or have a action plan to make sure the marriage and I take the best from both and get rid of the areas that are negative or not as productive, okay? And then when I look at the opportunities, consolidation in airline industries, I have more routes and acquisition targets may be available. And some of my threats are economic conditions, fuel prices might be affected, profitability in the future. Okay, so that's basically Southwest Airlines. Now let's look at the general environment. The general environment, you're going to break it up in demographics. Okay, I'm going to break it up in social, cultural, political, legal, technological, economic, and global. If I go demographics, I'm looking at aging population, rising affluence, change in ethnic composition, geographic distribution of population, and disparities at different incomes. This makes a big difference who's I'm targeting and where my employees are coming. So remember, it affects me two ways: my customer base and my employee base and my supplier base. They're all affected in the demographics and where I'm selling my product. Now, the social culture is basically forces that influence my values, the beliefs, the lifestyle of society. If I look at marriages are like about an all-time low, even though they're increasing again. A lot of people cohabitating together and not getting married for tax breaks or for whatever breaks. They don't want to go through the divorce, and they feel that we could break away, but then they have children in there. I mean, that's just a change. I'm not changing the values. I'm not talking about the value. I'm an organization. This is what's going on, social, cultural. What effect will it have on my organization? Is it a threat or is it an opportunity? I'm hoping it's an opportunity. You know what I mean? That I could sell or do something. If it's a threat, how do I adjust to the threat? Okay? Greater concern for environment. Okay, so I got people more environmentally green, which is fine. I'm a coal plant firer. I produce coal. That's a negative. That's a threat to me. It's positive and social. You want more cleaner air. So now I have to go into my technology and see, is there a way I could convert to coal gasification? There's a process that's costly and make it more environmentally friendly when it's, being utilized. Okay? And having children later. Okay, so that's the social. Political, you've got Americans with Disabilities, deregulation, utilities, increased minimum wages that affects my bottom line, legislation and on corporate governance reforms, and Affordable Care Act. Those are all things that's I have to address. They're part of the laws. I have to adjust my system so I don't get fined, so they don't close me down. So I'm working as a good corporate citizen within the structure I have to. And remember, all these things, the general and all this, when I'm looking strategic, if I'm in an international or a global organization, I have to look at that country, what's happening. What's happening in Venezuela now, where the president is basically getting additional powers because whatever, corruption or everything else, for lack of better words, the commerce or the businesses are doing against. If I have an operation there that I have to take and make a strategic plan? Do I pull out? How do I minimize my effect? What do I do so I don't get lose all my assets? Or do I sell it? Or do I stay there and just work with the government? Those are all things you have to think about with SWOT analysis, okay? And then you got the technology, again, right? You got computer-aided systems, new industries, altering existing ones, research in synthetic and exotic materials, pollution, global warming, really big nano technologies. Everything's so small now. Pretty soon I could have a chip and everything else, and they'll tell me everything. If you look at the QR, remember you used to have the UP code for everything else, the barcode. Now you have the QR. I click on there, it gives me the website, gives me the names, gives me a whole bunch of information, a little thing like that. Nano and just the technology, I can make it real small and fit into the clothing. They have a radio frequency right now for scanning. All clothes will have it. Different issue. I had to be aware of that, okay? The other one is economic. If I look at economic, interest rates, they're looking at interest rates going up. Unemployment rates, the unemployed people aren't working, they can sustain. But it gives me a less expensive workforce once they start going. Trends in gross domestic product and disposable income. They don't have money to spend. I have to maybe scale down. Now the economy is getting better. Maybe now's the time strategically to start expanding. If I think the next 5 years, the economy will be enough for people to start spending money because they have disposable income or discretionary income, depends on which chapter you read, and changes in stock markets. Because if changes, if the consumers don't believe or have confidence in the stock markets, basically I can't sell my products, I can't sell my stocks. So I use the stocks for generating additional capital or expanding my business. Okay, global forces, both opportunities and risks, increase in global trade, currency exchange rate, emergences of Indian and Chinese economies. I got 3 billion people between China and India that are potential customers, something that I could either open up a facilities or buy supplies from or sell to. Okay, trade agreements. You got the NAFTA, EU, and the Asian Europe agreement, World Trade Organization, basically to make sure that everyone's playing fairly, and an increase in terrorism. So that's basically an issue I have to look at. So if I'm sending people there, or my product, or if I got manufacturing plants and they're anti-U.S., anti-British, or whatever that I'm alliance with, it could affect my my organization, my bottom line. So from a strategic point of view, how do I minimize that? Okay, now competitive forces. Again, when I'm looking at the competitive forces class, let's get this ready, give you a little break here. When I'm looking at the competitive forces, consistency of factors in the tasks and industry. What are my competitors doing? Existing or potential. Some aren't even there yet, including those entering the market. I should be aware of them. Customers or buyers. Some customers become buyers. HP into computers, considered forward integration. Remember, HP was only printer, but they had all the technology, all the connections. They basically is a little computer because they save, they fax, and do everything else. So they just went into the computer business. What used to be a supplier is now a competitor for me. Okay, and you'll learn that when you take me for marketing. Okay, now Potter's 5 forces. Now, if I look at these 5 forces, I'm going to just go real quickly. So you have to understand these. All right, and I'll go through these and just slow them down. You have the model industry, and they take the 5 forces, looking at the strengths and weaknesses, and you utilize the 2 together. So I had to figure, and I'll go real quickly in here. Just put this down. So if I had to figure the 5 forces, I got potential entrants, new threats coming in. I have buyers. Remember, this is me, the industry. I have substitute products coming in there. They don't have to buy mine. I have some new suppliers coming in there. They want a bigger cut because I want quality suppliers. All this makes a big difference for me. So when I'm looking at the industry as a competitors, the price, the competition, advertising battles, increase in customer service, warranties. I have to affect that. I'm a car dealer. I'm selling a car dealer. Why car dealers now give you 3 years or 150 or 100,000 miles? Because foreign cars are giving that for people. And I'm going, hey, the car looks alike. They got this. This one's made in China. This one's made in Japan. This one's made in U.S. by a Chinese manufacturer, Japanese manufacturer. I got a Korean one, gives me all this. Why not get one for the most mileage? Some people want for the style. A lot of people want for the warranty. So I have to adjust my cars that are selling because my competitors, it's such a good incentive. That's why they have no maintenance for the first 2 years. Part of the agreement in the car to get you to buy their car over the competition. High fixed shortages, lack of differentiation between products, capacity. Right, so that's all industry. Potential, entrance, new people coming in. What keeps them out is economies of scale. New businesses that have established, I could been selling more, I could sell at a lower price. But a new idea comes in, they're recouping the research and development, so I could sell at a higher price with less. Apple does that all the time until I start getting the customer base to reduce my research and development. Now I could sell at a higher cost. Switching costs, access to distribution, those are all barriers. Cost disadvantage for on an independent scale, okay? And then, again, we got our buyers. Buyers have a bargaining power. You have a Groupon, or you have collectives or co-op. So they're buying. They could force prices down. They're going to boycott my product. Either you change something or reduce your costs, or I'm going to go to a substitute. Now, buyers group, a backward integration is possible. Quality is not affected by this industry. Okay, so I'm going to say buyers group. They're looking. They're looking at good quality product at a very reasonable price. Now, my suppliers, again, they exert bargaining power by threatening to raise prices, or groups are powerful, and you see that happening with Costco and American Express. Costco couldn't agree with American Express. What did they do? They just went to Citibank. Visa or MasterCard, for lack of better words. I think it was Citibank they made the agreement with. Even though they're not making money. I think it's breaking even when they took that. That's why American Express was trying to didn't want to go down just to break even. But there's such a large continuance that now they got their names, so the people who are using Visa, MasterCard indirectly will be purchasing more for them, or may utilize it in other stores. It gives name recognition from a marketing perspective. That was a strategic alignment with Costco, because they're a big distributor, okay? And then substitute keeps the prices down, come from other industries, and basically perform, okay? Same functions, more attractive prices. So that takes care of potters. And net value, if I look at net value, it's looking at customers, substitutes, complements, suppliers. Value, customers or consumers look at all of this as part of the total package, the value package when they buy your product. And the other thing is strategic groups, what I have in here, just to understand, when I look at strategic groups that make alignment with, or that I align because it makes sense, there's no unaccessible assumption in the industry. No two firms are totally different. No two firms are exactly the same. Cluster of firms that share similar strategies most likely will basically, like prices, quality, degree of vertical integration, type of distribution, will basically stick together. They'll make alliances. Okay? So in a nutshell, this is it. I think I'm like about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm not sure. But this is what we have for looking at the environment. When you're looking from a strategic perspective, you have to analyze your environment, look at your SWOT analysis, your strengths and weaknesses within the organization, your threats or opportunities outside the organization. You take Potter's 5 forces and you analyze each one of those forces we talked about. You get the quantitative and qualitative data, mostly qualitative. Here's the numbers. Which way is the trend going? I look at the statistical. I look at the probability. I take all this information. I forecast. I get my competitive intelligence. I monitor the environment. I basically look at different strategic groups. I could get information or create an alliance. And there we are. This is our, our overview of an environment. And this is the baseline for any strategic management course or strategy that you may consider. Again, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and thank you for listening to this series on strategic management, analyzing the external environment of a firm.